In May 2011, US President Barack Obama embarked on a tour of Europe. His trip took him to Ireland, Britain, France, and Poland.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome everybody to this press conference.
It's often customary for heads of state to present visiting dignitaries with gifts to commemorate their visit, usually something related to their country's heritage. In Poland, Prime Minister Donald Tusk presented Obama with a copy of a newly released video game, The Witcher 2: Assassins of Kings, developed by CD Projekt, a small, relatively unknown game developer in Poland. What was so special about this video game that Tusk thought it was appropriate to give as a gift to a US president? How did a video game from a small studio go on to become one of the most popular TV shows on Netflix? After a record rally, what caused the share price of this studio to plunge over the past several months? And where does this all leave investors today? Though still fairly unknown on Wall Street, CD Projekt is one of the largest video game publishers in the world, with a market value of about $4 billion US. The company turned an after-tax profit of nearly $300 million in 2020 on revenue of almost $550 million, mainly driven by the release of their latest AAA title, Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt's business is split between two segments: CD Projekt Red, their game development studio, and GOG.com, their PC video game distribution platform. CD Projekt Red's main focus is on the development of AAA single-player role-playing games within their two owned franchise IPs, The Witcher and Cyberpunk. While a publisher like Activision Blizzard will push to release a new Call of Duty title every year, CD Projekt chooses to create games more infrequently, but with longer life and sales cycles. Since 2007, CD Projekt Red has released 6 games: The Witcher, The Witcher 2, The Witcher 3, Thronebreaker, Gwent, and Cyberpunk 2077. Additionally, the company has released 2 expansion packs for Witcher 3 that, to the delight of fans, were nearly full-size games in their own right. The Witcher franchise in total has sold over 50 million copies, with over 30 million of those copies attributed to Witcher 3, which was released in 2015. Cyberpunk 2077, the company's newest IP, which was launched in December 2020, sold over 13.7 million copies just in its first month. The story-driven nature of their games, coupled with their high replay value, means that their titles sell well even years after release. And since the development costs of these older titles have been fully amortized at this point, incremental sales of these titles flow through the income statement at a nearly 100% profit margin. This allows CD Projekt to consistently generate industry-leading margins, which come well ahead of larger peers, even in years when they don't have any new game releases. CD Projekt's other segment, GOG.com, is less noteworthy. The platform sells a whole host of titles with a focus on retro, strategy, and single-player games. The launch of Cyberpunk over a year ago brought many new customers into the GOG platform. However, the platform still faces fierce competition from Valve's Steam and Epic's Game Store. So as such, we don't forecast any material upside to CD Projekt from GOG.com and view this segment as a free call option for investors. CD Projekt is led by a tenured management board, several being original founders, all with significant skin in the game. Altogether, management and their families own 1/3 of the entire company. Poland, 1989. Communism has fallen. Under the communist regime, video games were difficult to come by. Because of this, classmates Marcin and Mikhail Kaczynski resorted to role-playing board games, one of their favorites being the original Cyberpunk, created in 1988 by American board game developer Mike Pondsmith. Pondsmith recalls licensing the game to the Polish market, saying, "We'll sell 5 copies there." But as it turned out, those 5 customers would go on to start CD Projekt. Decades later, when Pondsmith met the team at CD Projekt, he asked them how they knew so much about his board game. The team replied, "We had communism and we had Cyberpunk." In the early 1990s, the CD-ROM revolution was in full force. Game developers were able to produce games with a level of sophistication never before seen. Marcin and Mikhail, now high school students, noticed that it was hard to buy many of these new CD-ROM video games in Poland and saw an opportunity to import and distribute these games themselves. They started small, importing a few discs at a time and selling them at local video game fairs. By the time they graduated high school in 1994, they had grown the business to the point of being able to run it full-time. So they did, and they named it CD Projekt in reference to their distribution of CD-ROMs. In the wake of the dot-com bubble, their distribution business suffered. In 2002, with the dream of one day developing their own video game, they started the CD Projekt Red video game studio. The original distribution business was eventually divested in 2014. Upon forming their studio, CD Projekt approached a relatively unknown Polish author about making a video game based on his Witcher series of books. The books feature a nomadic monster slayer, Geralt of Rivia, who travels the land in search of his next monster contract. Sapkowski sold them the rights to make video games based on his books for less than $10,000, opting for a lump sum payment in lieu of a profit share. Naturally, given the success of the games, this was a big mistake. Sapkowski later sued CD Projekt for additional compensation, which the parties settled in 2019. CD Projekt released their first Witcher game on PC in 2007. While the game featured deep lore and strong RPG mechanics, the graphics and combat system left a lot to be desired, and the linear level design failed to keep some players engaged. While it was a good first attempt, there was much CD Projekt could improve. Notably, they wanted to design a non-linear RPG that would give players more choice to play through the game as they saw fit. To accomplish this, the company developed their own video game engine called Red Engine, designed specifically for this need. In the video game industry, game engines are valuable IP that have enhanced the reputations and valuations of the studios that create them. Electronic Arts has been a notable acquirer of studios running their own game engines, including DICE in 2006 and BioWare in 2007. Other players such as Valve and Epic have created their own engines that they license to external developers, a very lucrative business for both companies. So it's not surprising that several unfounded rumors have popped up over the years that EA sought to acquire CD Projekt, rumors that CD Projekt denies.
That dream will not have a happy ending for you.
But CD Projekt's dream of a better Witcher title came to fruition in 2011 when they released Witcher 2. Thanks to the new Red Engine, this title was a large leap ahead of the first and well received by gamers on both PC and consoles.
Witcher, so be it. Let us end this.
But it was the 2015 release of The Witcher 3 that brought global recognition to the company. The game won hundreds of awards and was featured in thousands of publications around the world. Witcher 3 was so successful that CD Projekt's US revenue split for 2015 was equivalent to 3% of Poland's 2014 US export figure. It's no wonder Donald Tusk saw such a bright future for the company. In August 2018, PC Gamer went as far as to rank Witcher 3 number 1 in its list of the top 100 PC games of all time. Although most investors may view CD Projekt as a video game developer, I believe they're more than that. They are first and foremost expert storytellers and world builders. But rather than books, TV, or cinema, their preferred medium of expression is 3D interactive entertainment. It's for this reason that CD Projekt's games have abnormally long sales lives. For players, there's just as much enjoyment in the story as there is in the gameplay, and this story-driven focus shows up in their financial results, with each consecutive Witcher game selling far more than its predecessor, yet also stabilizing at consecutively higher levels of sales in the years following release. Because CD Projekt is selling amazing stories rather than just games, the company has an opportunity to extend their two franchises, Witcher and Cyberpunk, beyond the AAA video game medium. In December 2019, The Witcher was adapted into a Netflix TV series starring Henry Cavill as Geralt. CD Projekt only owns the rights to make Witcher video games and physical merchandise, but the popularity of the games no doubt prompted the production of the TV show. Though CD Projekt doesn't financially benefit directly from the show, they did see a huge pop in Witcher game sales after the show's release. On Steam, The Witcher 3 peak concurrent player count in December 2019 surpassed the number of players that were around when the game launched in 2015. It's very rare for single-player games to see increasing player counts over time. In 2013, 2 years prior to the release of Witcher 3, CD Projekt debuted their first Cyberpunk 2077 teaser trailer. The company was still small at the time and didn't yet have global recognition from The Witcher 3, but existing fans were excited about the prospect of an open-world RPG set in a dystopian sci-fi future. Years went by with no regular update on the game's progress, until E3 2018, when CD Projekt showed off a 48-minute demo of an early version of the game. Gamers were excited. But it was the following year at E3 2019 that CD Projekt broke the internet with the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer and live event that featured Keanu Reeves.
The feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
Hype for the game began to build. Gamers and investors alike expected the creators of The Witcher 3 to release a game that would be genre-defining, a game that would raise the bar for all other developers. In the days leading up to the release date, it was possibly the most hyped video game release of all time. Many other publishers delayed the launch of their own games in order to release them outside of Cyberpunk's launch window. Notably, Activision was scheduled to release the Season 1 update for Call of Duty Cold War the same day Cyberpunk released, but they pushed its release date back 1 week. After an 8-year wait and 3 delays, Cyberpunk 2077 finally released on December 10th, 2020. And oh boy did it miss the mark.
How does a game live up to the kind of impossible hype and expectations that Cyberpunk 2077 has generated over the years? The answer to that question is very simple. It doesn't.
Unfinished crashes,
Bad audio,
absolute disaster, glitches,
buggy mess,
bugs, issues,
bugs, felt nauseated after playing, glitches, crashes,
Bugs.
a lot of visual bugs, virtually unplayable.
CD Projekt Red, you motherfuckers, man. You're fucking assholes.
The game was a buggy, unplayable mess. It was unable to run on last-gen consoles and was barely playable on next-gen consoles and many high-end PCs. The issues were so severe that Sony pulled the game from its digital PlayStation Store on December 17th, preventing gamers from being able to download it from PlayStation directly. It didn't return to the digital store until 6 months later, on June 21st, 2021. Management attributed the poor launch to having their attention spread too thin over too many platforms. Whereas Witcher 3 released on PC, Xbox One, and PS4, Cyberpunk 2077 released on those 3 platforms, plus Xbox Series S and X, PlayStation 5, and Google Stadia. Understandably, CD Projekt's stock got crushed in the aftermath of the release. Although the game sold 13.7 million copies in December 2020, an incredible result by any standard, expectations were much higher. Analysts expected the game to sell upward of 30 million copies in its first 12 months. With Cyberpunk off the PlayStation Store for over 6 months, it's unlikely they reached that target. Warren Buffett is often cited for his quotes on contrarian investing. Notably, many of his greatest investments over the years have been in otherwise good companies that just happen to hit rough patches. I think CD Projekt is a great company that just hit a rough patch. While the company certainly made a mistake with how they managed Cyberpunk's game development, they haven't forgotten how to make good games, tell good stories, and build enchanting worlds. There is precedent for botched game releases eventually making a comeback. One of the greatest examples is No Man's Sky. Released in 2016 to significant hype, the game was buggy and missing many promised core features.
With No Man's Sky, I was expecting that next big leap. Except, it fucking leaped backwards. Way the fuck back. Like, what happened?
It didn't help that the developer's founder, Sean Murray, went on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert shortly before release to hype the game up.
Been dying to know the release date. I'm guessing it's fairly soon since you're on my show. Can you give us any idea of when that might be, or is it still a secret?
It's still a secret.
Okay, great, all right.
After the launch, Murray and his dev team got to work fixing the game and adding in all the missing promised features. Ratings of the game have since improved dramatically. Since the release of Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt has been hard at work pushing out patches and updates to fix the game. The game is now in a great technical state, and community sentiment has improved dramatically. CD Projekt has released additional free content for the game, and also surprised owners with an earlier than expected free upgrade to the next-gen console version of the game in mid-February. While investors seem to have left the company for dead, we believe that the company is likely to make a full recovery. For the Witcher franchise, CD Projekt will be releasing a next-gen version of Witcher 3 sometime this year. This will be free for existing owners, but the accompanying media blitz is sure to bring in new players. The next-gen version will feature new content related to the Netflix series, so existing owners will have a reason to re-engage with the franchise. Speaking of Netflix, The Witcher Season 2 aired this past December, and it left viewers on a pretty big cliffhanger. There's no doubt a third season is in the works. As noted earlier, these shows boost awareness of the Witcher brand and bring new and returning fans alike into the video games. For Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt will start releasing paid expansion packs this year. We expect 2 expansion packs to release in 2022 and a 3rd expansion pack to release in 2023. The company has also noted that they are exploring the addition of multiplayer components to Cyberpunk in the future. The details are unclear, but they may be thinking about how to emulate Take-Two's success with GTA Online. In the next year or so, CD Projekt will expand their labor force so they can develop 2 AAA titles simultaneously. They recently announced that they began development on a new AAA Witcher game. They also announced they would be ditching their Red Engine and using Epic's Unreal Engine to develop the title. We believe this change was made in response to the technical struggles experienced while developing Cyberpunk and the relative ease of hiring Unreal Engine developers versus developers for their bespoke engine. We estimate CD Projekt is currently trading at approximately 25 times this year's earnings. While this is in line with certain peers, we think that CD Projekt is best of breed and should return to its historical premium as the company executes. Also, with all of the consolidation going on in the video game industry, CD Projekt would be a prime takeover target for various parties, even if they allegedly rejected EA's advances in the past. For investors willing to take the long view, a rare mishap by a venerated studio presents an incredible opportunity to invest in a great business at a good price. Shortly after the release of Cyberpunk 2077, a colleague and I had the opportunity to speak with CD Projekt's management. We asked them how they envisioned CD Projekt would look in 10 or more years. Their vision was that CD Projekt would eventually be home to IPs that would have as much cultural relevance as old superheroes like Batman. Management are the company's largest shareholders. They're playing the long game, so investors should follow suit.